to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I want to talk about grief. And this is a difficult topic today because I found out 2 nights ago that a friend of mine passed away from liver failure. And my appointment with my psychiatrist was very timely in that it was yesterday, the day after I found out. And so I got to talk to her about what that feels like inside of me. And I wanted to share that here for several reasons, because grief is just freaking hard. It's hard and I don't know how to do it. But I have to remember that nobody knows how to do it and everybody does it differently. And so it's something that I think is important to talk about in the podcast because that's what I talk about here. I talk about things that are real and they're hard. And they make us feel like we're all alone. They make us feel challenged to keep going. That's the stuff that I like to talk about. I didn't record yesterday because I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know whether to talk about it or not. And even after I talked to my psychiatrist and really had a lot of great insights into my process and what it feels like for me, I still didn't know what to say because I felt like if I talk about this, I have to come up with some profound guidance. And I realized this morning that just like every day that I come here, all I have to do is click record. There is no pressure. I just come here and I talk about what life feels like. And there are times that I show up here and I cry because I'm going through something hard. I mean, everything I talk about is hard. Um, but grieving the death of somebody I care about is especially difficult for me. It feels like I'm lost and kind of floundering, wandering around in some dark room and I can't find my way out. That's what grief feels like for me. And my psychiatrist and I were talking about that and she said, it's hard and that's why it feels that way. That's why it feels like you're lost and wandering because there is no set way to do it. There's no defined path for any of us on how to grieve. We have to figure it out ourselves. And so her and I were talking about how I shared with her that I lost a friend when the summer after I graduated from high school. I lost we dated for a hot second and I broke up with him and he started dating somebody else. And then I wanted to date him again. And that was a no-go. I had already hurt him. He was happy with who he was with. And that was it. And it was puppy love. And it was something that I was obsessed with. I definitely look back at that time in my life and I was just a crazy teenager. And And I didn't talk about it, and I'm sure my behavior sometimes appeared crazy to people who know me from back then might be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I know the guy and all of that stuff." And my problem that I have figured out since then, years later, is that I never grieved. I was already drinking back then, and I heard when I got sober that when we start drinking, we stop growing. And I was drinking away. I shouldn't say away. I was drinking over the grief. And so I never processed it. I took it to college with me and I drank over it there. I took it to my into my first marriage with me and I drank over it there. Um, it was an obsessive confusion about death. What happens to somebody when they die? What do I do? What the light? It's so hard to imagine life without somebody in it. I've talked about that with my most recent friend who passed away a few years ago from alcoholism. I never imagined the world without him in it. And it was absolutely, it just shut me down. It shut me down. Um, I've talked with my mom about death. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. I love you. I've talked about death and how it feels like when somebody we love passes away, that the world should stop for them. And I think that there's even a poem about it. I need to look up that poem because I keep saying that. Yeah, I can't think of the poem or the poet's name right now because that's what it's like to listen to a podcast with a stroke survivor. So, we're going to move on. But it feels like the world should stop. And what my psychiatrist said yesterday that really touched me very deeply was that you stopped, and that matters. That person had so much of an impact on you, and you have so many wonderful memories with that person that you did stop, Rachel. You did stop for them. And that gave me a bit of comfort that I never felt before, that the entire world isn't going to stop when somebody passes, but I can stop and I can honor them and I can sit with the memories and smile. Where do I stop though? Where do I stop stopping? Where do I pick myself back up and start going again? Um, I'm trying to figure that out. I feel like I've done a pretty good job over the past day where I'm still living. I'm still doing my thing, but I do feel like I'm lost in this fog where I can't completely focus on what I'm doing because my mind keeps going back to her face. And I have this memory that's just on repeat in my mind. When I was with her in college, we spent a lot of time together because not only were we in the same sorority, but we were also on what's called the Panhellenic Council. And there were five of us on this council, in addition to a counselor. I can't, sorry. I don't remember what you were called, but it was like she was like our advisor. I think that's what it was. So there was five of us in sororities and fraternities. There was three women and two guys, and we were on this panel and a council, and it's the governing body of the Greek system. I went to Longwood College. And so we had this advisor who helped us. And it was our job to, like, I was the treasurer. It was my job to manage the budget. And then each person played a role. And so in order to manage the events and the goings ons for the Greek system at the college, it required the five of us to be together a lot. So I got to be with her in my sorority. I got to be with her on the Panhellenic Council meeting until all hours of the night. I remember laughing. I remember so many. We took a trip to, I think, Atlanta, Georgia together. And gosh, I just have so many wonderful memories of being with her. And this one in particular was I was in her apartment and we were just kind of hanging out. I don't remember exactly what we were doing. I was drinking, of course, because that's what I was always doing. But I remember her playing a song that she played all the time. And I need to find that song today and just play it. And she was just dancing around in her apartment and just smiling. And that is the memory that's on repeat is her smiling and dancing around. And um, that's what I like to envision of her today. That she's free. And another thing that happened, so I've got that memory on repeat. Another thing that happened that I wanted to share is that, so I found out that she had passed away. It came out in our college newsletter magazine, I guess it's monthly newsletter magazine. It might be quarterly, not part of the point. But there was a page for in memorandum. I guess there was two pages, and her name was listed on the year of in the 90s of going to school there and that she passed away. And so that's how all of the sorority sisters found out was through the magazine. And so I found out that night. I talked to a couple sorority and Greek friends of mine, and we were just sharing our shock, really, and our grief together. And so the next day, I woke up. So this was yesterday morning. I woke up, and you know how when you experience something that's really difficult like that, like losing someone that you care about, you wake up in the morning and just for a moment, you don't remember that that happened and everything is as it should be. And then it hits you. You remember that that person passed away. And it's like the bottom falls out, of your heart. Well, that's what happened yesterday morning. And just as I remembered, and I felt this immense drop, my phone lit up and it said that a bird visited our bird buddy. So for those of you who don't know what bird buddy is, it's a bird feeder that has a camera on it. And I got it for my husband for his birthday this winter, this past winter. So I get this notification that a bird visited. So I opened up the app and looking right back at me on this camera was a cardinal. looking right at the camera. And I just, I was, it was like I was trying to put it together. What just happened? What just happened? Um, and what I talked about to my psychiatrist is that I like to look at those things, those serendipity type things as signs. And those signs provide me comfort. What I was also sharing with my psychiatrist was that sometimes when I'm feeling down in that deep, dark hole of grief, and I want to look at one of those things like that cardinal looking back at me as a sign, I have this voice behind all of the chaos in my head that tells me that I'm ridiculous for thinking that something could be a sign from something beyond the real life in front of me, that this cardinal could be a sign. Um, it beats me up. It tells me that I'm stupid. It tells me that you need to accept death for what it is. And it is that she is gone. So I've got this battle in my head when it comes to grief. There is a part of me that wants to be comforted, to find ideas and beliefs and faith that give me comfort. And there's the other side of me that tells me to be intellectual about it, to just grieve and be done. It's like that part of me is really hard on me. And that part of me does not accept faith and signs. And I don't know why I have that. Okay, so I was talking to her, I was crying throughout this whole thing. There were points where I put my hands on my face and I just sobbed. And I'm telling her all of this, what's going on as I'm crying and I'm grieving over my friend. And I don't know why I have this battle. It just makes grief even harder. And I said, there's a part of me that doesn't want to talk about it with anyone because I don't want to see somebody's reaction. I don't want to tell somebody that I saw that cardinal and it was a sign for me and it brought me comfort. Because if I say that, I may see a reaction in their face or body language that tells me that I'm stupid and that I shouldn't think that. And she said, why do you care why do you let somebody else's beliefs about how you handle grief impact you? And I said, I don't know. That's a great question because if I actually step back and think of the fact that they found a planet hundreds of thousands of light years away that has life on it, be it microbial life, it it tells me that what's happening here and somebody judging me for something is so meaningless. It's so meaningless. So why not live in that world where there is a planet hundreds of thousands of light years away, however long it is. I'm not quite sure if it's tens of thousands of light years or hundreds of thousands of light years. But once you get to 1 light year, it's all the same for me. But why not live in that world where there is something greater than myself? There's something greater than what's happening on this earth. And when I do that, I remember that my friend, as she has passed, and some of you might predict that I'm about to say this, has now entered into my higher power. So, those of you who are lifetime listeners know that my higher power is a combination of everything outside of myself. And that includes people who have passed. And I explained to my psychiatrist who is in that higher power and what it does for me. And so I told her that within my higher power is number one, my concept of God, who I'm sure is not like anybody else's concept of God. Maybe it is. I'm not unique, right? But others who are in my higher power are my grandparents, um, my friend who passed away from alcoholism a few years ago, um, my father-in-law from the father of my ex-husband who passed away um, several years ago, and the owner of the company I worked for before I medically retired. He's in there. And now this friend of mine, she is now welcomed into this my understanding of my higher power. She's in there now. Um, that belief has gotten me very far in the way of accepting death. It has gotten me to this point where I believe, I feel that those that have passed leave an energy behind. And this is, I'm going to choose the words that I can describe it the best. Those that have passed leave an energy behind. And that energy fuels me. It fuels me to be the best version of me that I can be. And when I'm going through hard times, I lean into that energy for hope and comfort. And now that she has passed, she is there. She has gone from somebody that a dear friend of mine that I had minimal contact with since college to an energy that is with me constantly. Um, it's an amazing transition to go from feeling that when somebody passes away, they're gone and there's nothing left. I have nothing left. To I have a power that is fueling me, that is a piece of them that has been left with me and nobody else can take it away. And it'll be with me for the rest of my life, my life. And I think that that's a lot of progress. So when we were nearing the end of my appointment yesterday, my psychiatrist asked me, I need to give her a name, right? Instead of my psychiatrist, we need to give her a name. And I can't call her by her real name, so we'll think of a clever name for her. But when we were nearing the end of the appointment, she said, tell me what it has felt like to go through this process with me, to go through the feelings. And I said, because I'm a very visual person, ironically, now that I have issues with my vision, um, I said, this is what it feels like. It feels like when somebody passes away, there is a door in front of me. And as when I find out that the person passed away, I enter into that room and it's a dark room. There's no light in there. And when I allow myself to grieve, when I allow myself to fall onto the floor and cry in this dark room, the the doorway out lights up and I just have to walk towards it. When I don't allow myself to cry, when I just stand in that dark room, I just stand in the dark room and I'm walking around and I'm lost and I'm wandering in the dark room and I can't get out. Um, my friend that passed away a few years ago, I was wandering in that dark room for a couple years. I wasn't listening to music because it made me cry. I wasn't doing the things that were leading me to grieve. I was avoiding them. And I stayed in that dark room for a couple years in that dark room. A couple years. It wasn't until I decided, and those of you been listening for a long time, it wasn't until I went out and went for a run and turned on music that I knew was going to make me cry that I started to grieve. That I went out on the soccer field. There we have this sportsplex near my house, and I went out there. This was before my second stroke decline. I went out onto those soccer fields and I just started running. I was listening to music and I was running and I was sobbing my eyes out. I was just sobbing and it's still there. It's still in my throat. Um, but it allowed me, it was me dropping to the floor of that dark room and the doorway out lit up as soon as I dropped and I just cried. And so I told my psychiatrist, like, that's what it feels like. It feels like you allowed me to drop to the floor and the doorway out lit up already. And it was really good timing that I had an appointment with her because if I didn't, I would still be wandering around in that dark room. Um, I can, when I, as a sober person in recovery, when I allow myself to grieve, when I cry, when I do it the right way, when I put myself in a position of safety, and what I mean by that is I'm with somebody that I trust, that I can talk to. When I do that and I allow myself to fall to the floor in that dark room, I can feel the process of grief. I can feel the healing happening. It hurts. It hurts. It's like opening a wound to the fresh air. It hurts, but it heals faster. It heals faster if I do that. And so I think my message here today is to allow it to happen, to allow the grief to happen, to drop onto the floor and let it happen because that's when the doorway out lights up. So before I close, I just want to take a moment of silence for my friend who passed away. I've only done this once before, but I do want to take about 60 seconds. Let me get my phone out, and we're gonna do a timed 60 seconds. So we're gonna do a moment of silence for Jana Wiggins. And thanks so much for joining me today. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop the recording after our moment of silence.